All right, today we are going to be cleaning my carburetor. We're going to be cleaning a carburetor. So I've been getting a little chugging at sustained higher RPMs. I ride this thing every couple of weeks at the very least, but I feel like the only thing that could cause that is a dirty carburetor. So we're gonna end up taking some stuff off and wedging this carburetor out because it is a pain. I did not want to do this, but after going through a tank or two of gas, it is not going away. So what we're gonna end up doing here is we'll get our seat up and off. We'll get both of these side panels off. We'll disconnect our fuel line. We'll get to these bolts. And we're gonna end up pulling the tank off. All right, a little update on our carburetor situation. I am about to remove the lines and pick this up. I've gotten everything else off of it so far. Looks like I'm a little bit low on coolant. I can fill that up while I'm doing this. I'm gonna lift up this tank. It's not empty. I'll be putting that somewhere over there. But while I'm doing all this, I'm mentally just looking for things you might not see on your normal trip around. So far, I'm gonna add some coolant to it and pull this tank off. Whenever you pull the tank off, you really only gotta do these two bolts. I mean, these bolts hold it too, but the main things that are holding it are here, and then there's a little bit of a C section on the inside. It fits on some rubber grommets, so whenever you pull this tank off, you need to pull it out. Once we get it loose over there, then we'll have better access to our carburetors. There's two of them. All right, a little insight. In preparation for this, I ran the carburetor dry. So right now, there shouldn't be any gas in this line, if I can even get it off. A little bit. This is a little bit of gas in there. Yeah, a little bit. I'll end up cleaning that off. This is an inline filter. Keeps any junk from getting into the carburetor. I'm gonna spray this off before this gas starts to eat anything. But I ran this carburetor clean. This is the off. Down is the metal, which is the regular. And over here is the reserve. Inside this tank, there's two sticks. They kind of look like this. One picks up gas from a higher point, and one picks up gas from a lower point. Once it starts to chug in, you can switch to the reserve, and then you can make it to the gas station. There's no gas hand on this motorcycle, so you don't really know how much gas you got. But I ran this thing out. I turned the gas switch off and let these two bowls over here run out. So there shouldn't be a whole bunch of gas in the system. All right, another small update. This is mostly a tip for anybody who just got one of these and is trying to figure out what the heck the filter is. So whenever I first got mine, inside of here was a filter that actually it would basically disintegrate if you touched it. It was very oily and very old and nasty. So what I did was I ended up finding another type of filter material. You can see there's just a screen on one side, and then there's this, which is just this. And this is just like a, I don't know, it's something you could buy at like Home Depot. I cut it out. I pulled out this white piece right here, traced around it, cut it out, and then it's just something to get in between this mesh, which is the air box, and this little hold piece here. Whenever this piece goes in, it pushes that piece up against the other piece and then gives you your sort of air filter. So that's what I ended up doing. I guess you could run without it. I don't know if they actually sell them or not, but you just cut out something, a double layered mine. That could totally work. This other thing is called a welding tip cleaner. This is going to be very necessary for cleaning out this carburetor. Has very tiny, different sizes, tips to be able to get into those air holes and those fuel ports and stuff. We're currently at the point before I start removing cables. These are a pain in the ass to get off, just a heads up. I might pull this battery to kind of give us some room to come back. Before, when I did it, you just got to push this back, get these tubes right here. There's 2 tubes. There's hose clamps on here and here. Once you get those loose, there's also hose clamps. Can't really see them all that well on this back side, but there, if you can see that looks like a spring, like a rubber band type setup where it's like very elastic. That's what helps seat this carburetor to the air box. And then up at the front, we have it hose clamped to the engine. That's just the way that this whole thing works. It's really weird. But it's a pain in the butt because you kind of wedge it in and wedge it out and get all these clamps and hoses and holes lined up. It's a pain in the ass. That's why you're gonna want some space to get on both sides, because you can't just do this from one side. You got to get from one side to the other. It's a pain. All right, we just got our throttle linkages, our cables off. If you remove this, which was here, I put the bolt back in there because I don't want to lose it. If you do that, then you can deal with these because the way they're set up, when you pull one, you push the other one out, so they're really hard to get off if they're connected. So if you pull that off, we'll get this out of the way. This would be a good time to check your spark plugs if you haven't changed them in a while. The next and maybe last thing we have to take off is our choke. It's kind of hard to see. Here's our choke. All right, we just about got it. In fact, I think we're probably loose now. The strategy that I used to get this off is I kind of wiggled it and then I started prying on the boot. These little intake tubes. They're pretty thick. I don't know if you can hurt them. They're like half an inch thick, so yeah. So I wedged it off of, wiggled it off of this side, and then wedged it off the other side. Once I got that out of the way, our prize weights. In order to get this, choke off, it just kind of slides into this hole right here. So then once you give it a little bit and then you pull the cable out of that retainer hole, down at the bottom, then this whole kind of thing goes loose. So currently we are completely loose, and next thing we see will be taking the bottoms off of these carburetors. Remember, I ran them dry, so there shouldn't be anything really in there. If you didn't run yours dry, there's a couple of drain bolts at the bottom of the bowls. You can loosen those and let it sit and kind of drip out. All right, so here's our prize, our Ninja 250 carburetor. This is the factory one that came with the bike. Everything on it's pretty much factory. I think I got new floats in it. So down here, these, put my finger on it there. Right, there's your drain bolt if you need to drain those bowls. There's some adjuster screws here and there. But the main thing, just to get this thing running in tip-top shape, you can see there's a little hole right at the bottom of the tube. There's more holes, as you can see if I open this up. There it goes. See these holes? So it's important that those holes are clean. If it's not clean, then everything doesn't aerate correctly. So there's a couple of small ones right up front. I can see something in that hole, which would cause an idling problem. This one looks better, but this one is looks like it's a little clogged. We'll see what happens. I'm gonna get these bowls off and start looking around for anything that might be a problem. All right, just a little caution. Even though I ran mine dry, I still had a bunch of fuel coming out of this, I guess it's a flood hose or something. So be careful when you flip this thing over. Fuel might come rushing out of this. Try to be in a well ventilated area. So the first bolts I took off were these two right here. These are for this idle adjust cable. Next I'm going to take off these three here on each of these, and then just not really take anything apart. Like, you could use this for research, I guess, but mostly just gonna fill things out, try to clean out any holes or anything and see what this looks like. If it looks really bad, then I might end up having to do some deeper cleaning, but I'm thinking the inside of these are probably gonna look fine, and I just got a little bit of buildup or something around the jets or something like that. All right, we got our first bowl off. We can see a little bit of varnish. You can see it, that kind of dry, crusty looking stuff. This isn't terrible. I've seen much worse. It really turns into like a kind of dirty bronze kind of look. So in here we got our jets, our floats. What I'm gonna end up doing is taking, pulling this guy off, and he comes out with a little retaining clip right here. You can see this on my fingernail. This little pin will slide out. We have this guy. See if I can get a good focus on him. So he's I really didn't want to really focus on it, but this is a not sure what the actual term is, but it's a thing that allows fuel into the carburetor bowl. If you have any kind of flooding issues, you might have this as a problem. Whenever this is pressed up, when that bowl is up tight, because the carburetor bowl is full, it pushes up and it stops the flow of gasoline into the bowl. These have little rubber tips, and if your rubber tips are messed up, then that's going to be an issue for you. you buy a rebuild kit, you'll probably get some new ones. Just make sure they look like your old ones, because if they don't, they really mess with things. But I'm gonna check all these jets. This one and this one, even that one. And then I'm gonna run that little file cleaner through the front. Hopefully nothing's wrong. All right, so here's one of our jets. You can see, hopefully you can see, it's all clean. Doesn't look very clean, but the hole's clean. Here's one of the smaller jets, and you can see on this one, it's really hard to see, but I couldn't really get one of my files through it. I don't know if I can show you, but it doesn't seem to want to focus. But I want to be able to see through it, basically. Even if I can't get one of my files through it, I want to be able to see through it. On these smaller ones, what can happen is not just the main hole, but these little side holes over here will get plugged up and stuff. So you want to make sure this is all clean. And this one looks brand new because it is, because it came from a rebuild kit. I put this one on like 4 or 5 months ago. There's one more that we can get to, which is right here. We can remove this thing right here, and then we'll have an idea what our seat looks like. Through our top right here, because we're upside down, we have a needle coming through. So if we make sure our needle and our seat are clean, then we'll be pretty good. All right, here is that bigger one that I removed here from here. You can see it's much larger. This is where our needle comes down. You can see our needle right inside there. I guess we won't actually be able to see the seat unless we take the top off and the diaphragm. But here's another area where things can go wrong. You see this is very dirty looking, but our actual holes are fine. Just like before, just want to be able to see through. If we can see through, then we're doing okay. This is sort of our cleaning process. If we do all this stuff correctly, we should be able to get this thing running back to the way it was before. You can change your needle if you want. There's where our needle comes all the way down. As our needle, as we lift our throttle, our needle gets pulled up and more gas gets introduced to the mixture. Down in here is where it lives. Maybe somebody smarter than me will tell you exactly what that's called. But this one goes here. We got another jet that goes over the top of that one. And then we have this miniature fluted one that goes on the side over here and down in the hole. Once we get those clean, once I get those clean, I'm gonna be satisfied just having these clean and then checking those air holes and everything. I'm expecting the other side to look more the same. You can see it's not all that dirty on the inside. It's not like the cleanest thing in the world, but not that bad. All right, second bowl. We can see there's a lot more varnish on this one. A tip, if you decide you want to clean this with brake clean or something, or carburetor cleaner, pull the gasket off. Once that gasket comes in contact with that cleaner, it's gone. So if you look through this jet, I don't know how well it'll show up. It shows up pretty well, actually. From my eye, for a second there, it looked a little looks a little clogged. I end up flipping this one over and pulling off this other one too. But yeah, if you end up using anything, just keep it away from these gaskets because it will eat that gasket alive. Just gotta pull those off and make sure they're clean. Once we're done with that, we're good. All right, I just popped these out. I got the 2 bowls back on and this adjustment linkage on. So right here is our kind of like an idle, maybe a mixture screw. These are new, so they're in pretty good condition, as you can see. A little bit of dirt, but mostly really good condition. But something I did notice, maybe you can notice too, is see that hole? And you see that hole? I'm not sure how it's really showing up, but with my eyes, this one is a little bit bigger than that one, which makes me feel like this one is a little bit dirty, the one on the left. I'm gonna try to get in there with these files and try to get them clean, get that back together. These screws, I've heard a bunch of different people say what to set these at by default. These sort of mixture screws. I've been running at 2.5 full turns, so from all the way down, 2.5 turns out on both sides. That seems to be fine for me. I guess I could be completely wrong, but that's the ones that that's the adjustment I've been using. All right, we got our carburetor all cleaned up. Here's our engine side and our air intake side. Went through pretty much everything. Only found maybe 1 or 2 areas that were just a little bit clogged up. Like, it wasn't running terrible, but it definitely wasn't perfect. So our situation now is getting it back on. I've seen some people just completely remove these air boxes and just go with 2 little combs for air filters, which might be a good idea. Just air boxes. Let's drop the phone. It's sandwiched in there, so it's really hard to deal with. Some people will cut the battery box off of it because it's a 2-part thing. It's an air box / battery holder. If you cut the battery box or separate it, then you can remove that part and you can have a little bit more room to work. What I'm going to do, as you can see, I rolled these back, these little elastic things. I'm going to put the carburetor in first, make sure that it's seated up well. And then I'm going to wedge in, if I can, these intake tubes. And when you put these in, it's important to make sure that these screws are facing towards you so that you can get to them. I've made the mistake before where I did this and it was very difficult to tighten them down. So don't do that. Remember your orientation. You just need to get it on there like that while the carburetor is in here, and then get everything kind of seated. It will be fine. So carburetor first, make sure those are all seated, and then we'll try to get those tubes on. All right, it was somehow easier and harder than I remember, but but I guess easier because I was able to do it quicker. It's gonna feel wrong until it actually works with these tubes. They suck. So once you got your tubes on, you should see them pushed all the way up against the engine and the carburetor fully on those. Now your only concern after that is obviously getting these tight, but also make sure those back boots are on too. If for some reason those are pinched or in the wrong direction and not fully seated, worst case scenario, we're just picking up dirt from the outside world. Best case scenario, it's just restricting airflow. So once I get these on, I'm gonna roll these forward so that they're around the carburetor. It's easier said than done. But yeah, we're looking pretty good. We'll start reattaching things and get the gas tank back on and get her idling and see if she's working any better. All right, we got everything back together. Zoom out. Everything back together mostly. Still got to get our sides on, our seat back on. Yeah, everything went pretty smooth. Once you do this once or twice, you can really get used to it and do it pretty quick. So we're going to turn our fuel on, but just because our fuel's on doesn't mean our bowls are filling up. The way this, they call it a pedcock. The way this thing works is it pulls vacuum from the carburetor. So we may have to run this thing, wind it a little bit before we get it to fire off. Once that happens though, our bowl should fill up and we should be able to run. So let's give it a shot. Give it a second. All right. So right now we're looking for our idle. I mean, it means nothing to do this. What we want is our idle. So you can see you can see we're about 900, which isn't terrible. The way we adjust on that is this screw right here. If we go this way, turns up the idle. If we go back the other way, it turns it down. So we're gonna have two different idles. We're gonna have one when we're cold and another one when we are warm. You want to adjust for when you're warm because that's when you're going to be idling at stoplights and all that stuff. But we're sounding pretty good. We didn't really make any adjustments. Just tried to clean it out. And it sounds like we're probably right back where we were as far as our settings go. We're doing okay. And it's just going to take a little bit of riding to see if we've cleaned up that upper end stuff. All right. Yeah, I don't have any other advice for you. Maybe if you think you might drop your bike, you could wrap some electrical tape around these so that they don't get all messed up. All right, well, thanks for watching. I'm going to get this thing tuned and see how she's running.